Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pink Radio with Prestige. This is your girl, Nicole Doss, CEO and founder of the Prestige Society, a membership organization for women entrepreneurs who believe in building powerful networks while slaying in their industries. So today, we are going to talk a little bit about being a steady Eddie. And what does that mean for your business? And does that equate to failure? So of course, every episode usually starts with some kind of, anecdote or story or something that I have experienced in life that kind of brought me to this point of wanting to bring this up. So in this case, I have been in situations where people have asked me, hey, Nicole, what's going on with Prestige? My business has been such a huge part of my life that I think that when people see me, they're just really interested in hearing, what's going on, what's new with it. And for the most part, I've always had really exciting, awesome news to share. But what I found lately is that we were kind of in this steady state of our business, and nothing that I felt was negative. It was just that we were in this really comfortable, steady state. And I must have been asked 3 times within the week, or maybe like in like a week and a half's time, how's business, how's Prestige doing? And in that I've been saying, you know what, we've been really fine. We've kind of in this steady state. And each person who asked me, how was the business doing? Each person who said, I had made that reply to that, we're fine. We're really in this steady state. Each person had the same response, which was, oh, okay. So like, what's going on? And I had to kind of, look back on it, because that was not the response that I was expecting. I definitely will say that maybe it could have been something in my tone that may have, prompted someone to ask that follow-up question. But I will say that that response 3 different times really shocked me, and it made me want to explore a little bit about what happens in a steady state of a business. Why does it have this really bad connotation where people will ask that question next? And once I did a little bit of research, I said, wow, maybe this is why people ask that question. But what's interesting is that I actually do not have a negative connotation around a steady state. And I wanted to talk a little bit with you about what that means and how you can actually thrive in that space when you find that you are at a steady state in business. So here's the deal. I've used the word steady state about 6,000 times already. So let's kind of jump into, what does a steady state economy mean, or a business mean? So we're not going to, and let me just take that back. We are not going to explore a steady state of an economy. A steady state of an economy is a completely different dragon. I mean, it is so infused with nature, ecosystem, economy, market, people, population, ratios to population, wealth, capital, stock, that it's a beast. But there are elements of that whole, ideology around what a steady state of economy means that really can be related to you as an entrepreneur, that kind of fits into what we're going to talk about. So when I talk about a steady state of a business, it is really this balance of this consistency in which you're operating with this sufficiency of your business. So if we look at it from the standpoint of the economy, a steady state of economy, that is this whole view that there is this balancing act that's going on of the earth has finite amount of resources. And so at some point, the economy, and if you think about the economy, I want you to think about what drives the economy. So what drives the economy are all of these businesses that are putting out products, services, content, whatever, that is going to then drive a behavior of consumers purchasing. And so this cycle of demand and supply, or supply and demand, if you will, kind of builds or creates this ecosystem of people creating something and then someone purchasing something. And so in this steady state, what this balancing act kind of eliminates is this overproduction from a business side and this overconsumption from a consumer side. So you're not going to over create all of these things and keep growing. At some point, it's going to level off and people aren't going to keep on buying and buying and buying, because at some point, something's going to happen either in their lives or with the world that's going to drive their purchasing power, if you will. So for me, it would be, hey, I'm not going to buy so much stuff if I'm paying for my daughter's college education, right? Or if I'm impacted by the pandemic, I'm not going to buy so much stuff if I just lost my job and my I'll say my unemployment benefits are not coming in on time, as we're seeing in the latest in news stories. So those are things that are, whether voluntary or involuntary, whether they're internal or external, that could impact someone's purchasing decisions or ability to purchase. And so those are the kind of elements and dynamics that usually impact whether there is this steady state within an economy. So ultimately, it's about degrowth. So when I started reading about this degrowth, and I don't know if like my friends, were thinking this in mind when they were like, oh, Nicole, how are you doing? And I said steady state, and they were like, meh. But I do realize that when we talk about a degrowth, these are things where people are like, hold Nelly, like, wait a minute, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And I realized for me, degrowth is not a bad thing. And I want to explain to you why. There are parts of being an entrepreneur where you get to a point and you can grow too fast. I was in a Bible study for entrepreneurs a few years ago, and someone actually spoke to this who was in the class, and she said that she had a business, she grew way too fast, and in the beginning, that growth seemed like a godsend, right? It seemed like as if it was a blessing, and of course, because she was being blessed monetarily. And so she was getting money and she was seeing, residuals that she had never experienced before as far as money goes. And she really was excited. The problem was that there was no room for understanding each level of her growth, getting her muscles. And when I say muscles, I mean like her business muscles, her boss muscles, her, the business acumen, sharpened. There was no time for that because there was so much growth that she just had to kind of work. And ultimately, no one was really ready for the amount of success that they were receiving at that time. So, I will always say, I remember hearing T.D. Jakes say one time that he said, certain blessings could be, or certain things can either be seen as blessings or as tragedy. And he related it to giving a brand new car to a 3-year-old. And he said, so, if I give a brand new BMW and I give it to a 3-year-old and I give them the keys and I sit them behind the wheel and they start the car, that can result in a tragedy. But if I give that same car or that same gift to a 30-year-old and we put them behind the car and they go, that can be seen as a gift. And so really the point he was making is that when you're not ready to receive your blessings, when you're not ready to operate in the space in which you are being placed, then it could either be a tragedy or it can be, maybe some people just get thrown in the fire and they make it out okay. But there's a chance it can actually be a tragedy. And so something that was meant to be a blessing could actually not end well for you. So for this particular entrepreneur, I so saw that, right? And I understood her story. So when we talk about degrowth, what we're saying is that you're operating literally at a steady state. You're not continuously growing. At some point, it levels off. I usually equate that to an airplane. So in that airplane, you figure the pilot's on the runway and he takes off. And as he's taking off and as your ears are popping, you are slowly, going up to the point is to reach a particular altitude. There is timing that's involved in that. No one just shoots right up to a particular altitude, because that would have a negative impact on the passengers, on those who, the pilots. So what happens is that there's this slow increase, and you get to a certain space or altitude, and then you coast at that altitude, and then you incline a little bit more, and then you're there, and then finally you're all the way up in the clouds where you can't see any more land, and you've reached that destination of where you're supposed to be for the altitude, and that's where you level off. You don't go any higher, you don't go lower until it's time for you to land, but you stay at this steady state at this altitude until you get to your final destination. That's, for me, how I see the ebbs and flows in business, the peaks and valleys in business. So at some point, you're going to see that you're slowly on this incline. If you're doing it right, I'll say slowly, right? So we know that the one woman talked about this overnight, whoosh of success and whoosh of money. But for those of you listening and who have been in business for some time, we know that there's not this overnight of anything. There is this slow incline that you see of your business growing. And you're just like that plane. You're at this point where you're slowly getting to this level, this altitude of your business. And at some point you level off. At some point you've reached that altitude for that season in your business, and you're coasting at that altitude. And sometimes you got to go down, and that's that decline, not degrowth, decline. There's a difference. Degrowth just means you're not growing anymore, but you're not losing anything either, right? When we talk about a decline, you're losing something. So why am I talking about Steady Eddie? Why am I saying it's not a bad thing? Why are we having this conversation? Because I believe that there's some serious activities that you guys as entrepreneurs really need to do when you are at a steady state. Because at some point, if you aren't preparing for this next level of what it is that you're supposed to do with your business, you can, in fact, find that you are going into a decline. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that I believe you should be doing while you are at a steady state. So if you are in a space where you find you are in an incline, or you have been in an incline, and you are now in what I like to call a steady state, the first thing I want you to do is identify what part of your business actually works. So what usually happens is that if we're not careful, we become absolutely complacent. And we're just kind of cool with getting this money. Oh, I'm getting this money. I'm getting this money. Okay, boom, 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 boom. And for me, what getting this money looks like, especially for someone who has, a tribal economy business model, which in layman's term is just a, membership subscription business model. For me, and, if you want to learn more, please feel free to buy my book, Tribe, available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you want to look, and my website, especially if you're looking for this kind of model to sustain your business. But for me, when I'm at a steady state, that means that I have not lost any clients. I have my members, and they're paying their monthly fees on a regular basis. So they're just paying. That is a steady state for me. So that, and usually for me that happens because I have to time when new members come on board. Because once we began to get a little bit bigger, I realized that one, being a solopreneur and just having all of these onesie twosies or twosies threesies or threesies foursies coming in did not allow for me to streamline or scale my business operations in a way that allowed me to be effective. So I needed to make sure that what we did is have an onboarding program that was identified in certain times. And then that way I was able to do a great balancing act at managing an experience and a value for existing members of the Prestige Society while managing the experience and the value for those who are new members who would go through our cohort, which is an incubator and an accelerator that lasts 12 weeks. That's through Boss Academy. And so that for me was really important. So I had to create this timer or this stopper. Like, okay, these are going to be the times within a fiscal year that we take on new members. So you'll see, I used to have it 3 times a year. Now I only have it 2 times a year. So we have a winter cohort and we have a spring cohort, and then that's it. So fall and summer are my times to really put in a whole bunch of time into my existing members to make sure that they have support in growing their businesses as well. So for me, steady states happen in a really cyclical space. And you may notice that too for those of you who, if you don't have a subscription-based business, but you have a transactional business, you may notice this as well. So when I get to this point where I'm at a steady state, what's really important for me is to identify what's worked. What's working with me getting people into the Prestige Society? What's working with the things that I'm doing for current and existing members who have already graduated through Boss Academy and they're just, part of the sisterhood of the Prestige Society. And in that, I have to create standard operating procedures. So what that looks like for me are quick forms stating, what each process looks like. I'm more of a visual learner, so I love to create even process maps with decision trees that help me figure out what it is that I need to do for a smooth process. And for those of you who are like, I don't got time for that, so I'm just going to name out a few. I'm not saying you guys would not do this, but I'm just going to name out a few different businesses that may say, this is not really for me. I don't got time for that. I got 100 cupcakes to make. I don't have time for that. I have to run my hair salon. I don't have time for that. I have to do this, that, and the other. I'm going to explain to you why you do have time for that. And if you don't, why you are going to not only see a degrowth, but you're going to see a decline in your business once your growth period is over. Once your steady state after your growth time is over. So when we look at things based on, and this is something that I think a lot of people negate, especially in this day and age of the girl boss securing the bag. In the day and age of the girl boss securing the bag, it has become such an egocentric swampland of entrepreneurs because all they're worried about, and I'm just going to call it for what it is. Unfortunately, for some of you, you have been a little duped. Just a little duped because you're following people who make all this money. So because they make all of this money, you feel that legitimizes them. And what you fail to do is look under the hood and really exercise some morals, right? Like look at it from a moral perspective, looking at it as a CEO should, which means what is this around my brand and my business's integrity to see, is this really a business model that is going to create a viable business, meaning that it is a healthy ecosystem of business, the way you operate, and then customers. Because remember, there's going to be 2 sides of the coin you got to focus on, right? How you produce, well, I'll say 3 sides. How you produce, how you deliver, and then how consumers consume, how they buy, how they purchase from you, how often they purchase from you, how they feel when they purchase from you. But unfortunately, that third side isn't really explored in most of the courses that some of these influential entrepreneurs put out because they're not basing it on sound business, right? They took a course about how you can make money and how you can be a millionaire making a course. So all they're focused on is how to get you to buy the course, promising you that now you're going to make money if you buy their course. So because of that, they're only telling you the business, like you need to do your business like this. And the business is going to make you money. Y'all know I doodle when I talk, so I'm sorry if you hear me writing around. It's because I'm doodling. But it's how you make money doing this business. There's no conversation about the customer experience. So let's talk about why that's a problem. Because your business, the breadth of your business, when I say breadth, I don't mean like the width of it. I mean the literal breath, the air, the vitality, the bloodline of your business is based on the consumer. The consumer. Because if you don't have consumers, boo, you don't have a business unless you plan on just continuously investing into the business yourself. But if you don't have customers, you don't have a business at all. You need your customers' money in order to cover your operating expenses. And that just puts you in the black and lets you just operate at zero. But when we talk about now profits, that means now you have to do something so well that now you're not just covering your operating expenses, but now you're able to see some income go into your employees' pockets. And I say employee because even if you are a solopreneur, that means you are the only employee for your business. And if you need to pay that employee, i.e. yourself, then you need to make sure that you're making enough profit to do so. But you only do that by way of customers. And if you do not focus on their experience, if you do not focus on the value you're providing to them, that means that you will not have longevity in being able to purchase or to sell to your consumers, because at some point the jig is going to be up. Okay. You will not have repeat customers. You will not have loyal customers. So that's a problem. So once again, this is why you want to take time to focus on, when you're at a steady state, why you need to focus on your standard operating procedures. Because in looking at, and I'm always fascinated by what drives consumers' behavior. So that's why you had to hear this very long rant, excuse me, it's really long rant on the importance of consumers. So in doing some of my research, what I found is that when we look at luxury consumers, because nobody out here wants to sell anything with really low price tags, right? Everybody's interested in being able to charge a whole lot of money for their products. Such entitlement, right? Because you're worth it. You may not have put in the work, but you're worth it because somebody told you you're worth it. You haven't even tried this yet. You haven't even gone through an internship with your business yet, but somebody told you that you deserve to make $10,000 off of one person, right? That's entitlement, by the way. I'm being very sarcastic. You're not worth it because you didn't do the work yet. You didn't prove yourself yet. Now, for those of you who have been doing this for some time, for those of you who have been working your butts off, for those of you, you are worth it because you deserve it. You've put in the work. But for those of you who haven't, who are new to this, please understand that this is a game where longevity is key, right? It's not about overnight success. So when you want to put these really high price tags onto your businesses, you have to look at the consumer of a luxury customer. So what's a luxury customer? A luxury customer are customers that do not mind purchasing high-priced items because they have the currency to be able to do so. I won't say the wealth, because people who are not wealthy will spend money on things they have or see value in. I'll even go back to like me in my college years, Coach does not equal at all wealth, but you get you get the meaning. So I think that I remember being in college and being a waitress, and if I got like a really great, amount of tips that night, and, I was a waitress back when you can smoke inside of restaurants. And so I used to always work the smoking section because smokers always tend to drink more alcohol, and alcohol equaled a higher bill then equaled a higher tip. So I always wanted to work the smoking section. And if I made really great tips, I would go and buy the thing that I thought was really, really nice. So maybe it was a Coach bag, or maybe, do not laugh at me, okay, guys? I'm just going to say what I used to do because I was a cool college student. Maybe I'd go to BB and want to buy a shirt. And these are things that honestly, I shouldn't have been doing because I was a poor college student. But for me, wearing these labels meant that I had money, at that time. So I'm sure lots of us can equate that to adults who may want to buy a Louis Vuitton bag but not have $1,000 in their savings, or want to buy some Christian Louboutins but not have $10,000 in their savings. So when we look at, when I talk about what people are willing to buy, it's not really in correlation to wealth. It's really in correlation to currency. So if they have access to that currency, they will buy it if they see that there is value. So one of the things that luxury customers look for is customer experience, and also that adds to how they're treated when they're making the purchase, as well as how they're treated when things go wrong. And then, believe it or not, consistency in the product, consistency in the customer experience. So what does that mean? That means that if you get a Louis Vuitton bag that looks where let's say you love the signature line, and you love the signature monogram line, and you just want the traditional Louis Vuitton brown and tan LVs. But you like that line, right? You don't like the checkers. You don't like gray and black. I mean, the gray and white checkers. You don't like the cognac and darker brown checkers. You like the traditional LV monogram kind of brand. And that is what you expect to get. That means that Louis Vuitton has to have a standard operating procedure on how they manufacture and make that collection. Because any deviation from that could mean that it does not look or seem authentic. And that is something that may make the consumer upset. When the consumer buys from Louis Vuitton, they are expecting to have a level of service. And if they get this level of service, they are happy. If they are treated well when something goes wrong, then guess what? They come back. Now, that is from a standard operating procedure. Let's step out of a luxury brand. Let's go to an everyday Joe Schmo brand like Amazon. So Amazon actually says that they are what's called obsessed with their customers, which means that their standard operating procedures say that they are to take care of the customer by any means necessary. So what does that mean for the customer? That means that if you get something and you are not happy with it and you call Amazon, Amazon's like, well, shame on that particular merchant for not giving you what you need. You keep that thing that doesn't look right and we'll refund you the money. Because guess what? That's not going to be any loss to Amazon. That's a loss to the merchant. And that's the Amazon's way of saying, merchant, you should have done better. Because we care about these customers. So because customers are so well taken care of from an Amazon standpoint, what do? They always come back. But there is a standard operating procedure that's put in place, which ensures that every customer that has a problem, all they have to do is complain and they can get some kind of resolution with their issues. If they did not have a standard operating procedure around that, that means that there would be that was not heavily enforced, I would say, then that would mean that some people would feel like they find resolution. Some people would feel like they don't. Some people would feel like they can trust Amazon. Some people feel they can't. I mean, if you look at their comments or their review community, the review community is so huge that people usually make their purchases based on the community of other consumers that tell you how they feel about that very product. So that's not even a luxury consumer. That's just a consumer, period. This is why when you are in your steady state, you have to be in a position where you're really thinking about what went right and how do I implement these things that went right into the business so that every time I experience some interaction with the customer, this is what they experience. And why is this going to be important? Because at some point, guess what? When you come out of your steady state, if you do things correctly, you're going to grow. And growth for you may look like growth in people, not people from a consumer side, but it may look for you like growth in having to hire people. So now that you're not just doing this yourself, now that you're not controlling every aspect of your business, how do you ensure that Jane that you just hired now is going to be able to deliver this same experience? Oh, I know. You got to handle what you're supposed to do. You got to handle that process flow. You got to handle those bullet points that you mapped out of what they need to do for this particular process. Is this work on the front end? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Why is it worth it? Because that is going to have a direct correlation to the consistency and customer experience you are building for your client base. And in turn means that guess what? You are looking at that three side of the coin. The business, so what you are providing to your tribe, how you deliver it to your tribe, and then the customer experience. All right. So all of that mouthy word, I mean, I feel like, whoa, this is like one of our old episodes. Because all of that just for point one of identify what works in creating your standard operating procedures and why. The second piece of it honestly should feel like a really organic fit. So if you in the first step identified what works, then of course the second step should be you need to throw out everything that didn't work. You need to throw out everything that was a non-value add activity for your business. You need to throw out anything that did not produce results, but just was a time sucker. Why? Because if you are operating as a solopreneur, that means that time is very important to you. Efficiency is very important to you. Streamlining your tasks, your activities should be very important to you. I told someone just last night, can you believe I only spend 1 hour, sometimes less than 1 hour on social media a day? And they couldn't believe it because they're like, you're always on social media, but I'm not. I automate that process. So if there's anything that I spend my time really doing in social media is either liking or commenting within my tribe. That's it. But posts, stories, all of that is done automated through Planoly because I have to streamline that or I would literally just be a social media manager for the Prestige Society, right? Value add for me is not spending time typing out lengthy captions on my keyboard on my phone. But what does work is scheduling out some kind of block of time where I focus on all the social media for the week that's going to be posted. Okay, great. So these are things that you really want to be mindful of. So if something is not value add, I'm trying to think what else I used to do that wasn't value add. Oh, I know it wasn't value add. When I used to send out emails per person that came on board, and each email would be like a different message. Oh, girl, get your whole life. If you do not use some kind of email, so I use Constant Contact. I have an automated email whenever, and I have a group that's called New Members. So whenever someone is a new member, their name and their email goes into that group, and then it generates a series of emails that go out to those new members, prepping them for what's next. Like, these are things you have to look at because I hated the fact that I was spending so much time sending out these emails. So you have to look at your business and see what works and what doesn't work. But whatever that doesn't work, whatever is non-value add, whatever is a time sucker, because they can be different things that are all falling into those different categories, you want to make sure that you toss them things right in the trash. Okay? Now, the next thing you're going to do, the third thing you're going to do, is you're going to start planning for growth. Right now, when you find that you're in a steady state, the cool thing is that you have time because there is something that you really conquered that has given you the ability to have time. So, for instance, I'm at a steady state because there's no Boss Academy. I don't have a crap load of Monday night classes that I need to do or, modules that I need to release or, office hours I need to have with my new members. Like, none of that is happening. I usually offer 1 to 2 classes for my members, existing members. But that stuff I usually do even when I have Boss Academy. So really, when I don't have Boss Academy, I have time. Okay. And so I think we finished Boss Academy in May. So that means from May, maybe it was June. So let's say from June to December, there's time. So what do you do with that time? You plan for growth. So what does next level look like for Prestige? How do you get there? What do you need to do? What are you not currently doing? What are some new aspects in the business that you haven't really explored? And you create time for that. What happens? Oh, what are some existing issues for your tribe that your business does not yet solve for that you can implement? I mean, what you could focus on is crazy. Now, here's the thing. You can't focus on everything, right? Because I'm sure you heard of the saying, what does it say? I can't even think. jack of all trades and master of none. So that's not really the space you want to live in. But what I will say is this. You do want to be in a space where you are choosing one or two things. If it's really big, choose one. But you want to be able to choose, and I actually will have the threshold of 1 to 3 if it depends on where you are, right? Like how much time that you feel like you may be in this steady state. But 1 to 3 things, depending on size, scope, complexity of these things that you've identified that's going to help you with growth. You are going to want to be in a space where you are going to say, okay, I want to focus on these things in this time block. And it's really important. And honestly, in this, you need to be your own research and development department. You need to be your own innovation department. Like really taking time. I usually have research and development Wednesdays. That's like really big for me. And the reason why is because when you come out of this degrowth period. So what is degrowth again, guys? It's your steady state. Is degrowth bad? Absolutely not. But when you're at this state where you're just kind of maintaining that altitude and you're coasting along on those beautiful entrepreneurial skies, if you do not do your due diligence when you come out of that space, there is a chance that you may see a decline and not see growth. Why? Easy. Because listen, steady state easily for anyone could be complacency. So if you're complacent and you have no idea what's trending in your industry, what consumers are looking for, what gaps or void that exists in your industry that you have the innovation and creativity to fill, if you do not have any of that going on for you, then what happens is that you really there's a chance that what you see, what you experience, what you'll go through is that you will no longer be relevant to your tribe. And relevancy is absolutely important because if you're no longer relevant, the reality is that there's 6,400,242 versions of your business. And those customers will explore every last one of those options that seem really great to them. And that means you lose out. If you think about it from a standpoint of, algorithms and social media, what ends up happening? I mean, in reality, your posts don't even come up on their timeline anymore. They don't even see you in their feeds. So what does that mean? Out of sight, out of mind. So if you stay in this state of complacency, there is a chance that you actually will see a decline in your business. And that's something you don't want. So make sure, guys, you take heed to all these things. So just to go over these 3 points once again before we wrap up is 1, identify what works when you are in this space of steady state and figure out how you need to create that as your standard operating procedures, because it's all about at this point creating a consistent customer experience for your tribe. Number 2, throw out any non-value activities that are either non-value, time suckers, just not producing any true results for your business. Throw those things out. They are not adding any value to you. That is just busy work. And that right there is just something that no person needs. And then the other thing that I want you guys to think about is starting to plan for growth. You will not be in steady state forever. So you need to plan what's next for the business. So with that, guys, I'm going to say have a wonderful, awesome, and most of all, blessed day. Bye.